Hello. Let me change stream title real quick. AP Micro. AP Micro Unit 1. Okay. Uh, Let me close that. All right. So Unit 1 is just the basic economic concepts. I'll give you all a brief introduction just over some general stuff. It's not necessarily in the AP exam, but some of it's in decathlon. So, yeah. Adam Smith, in his Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, outlines the idea of the invisible hand, or that when people act in their own self interest, most of the time they will promote social interest more than when the individual intends to promote social interest. Macroeconomics is the study of the economy through individuals, i.e., firms, people, households, etc. And we'll all look at how people make decisions and allocate scarce resources. Macroeconomics is the study of the economy in aggregate or as a whole, and there's millions of actors and their behaviors all influence the economy. And we will also look, or we won't look at, but macroeconomics, you will look at how policy affects these millions of actors. So, microeconomics starts out with philosophy, i.e., ideas outlined in the Wealth of Nations, and then simplified via economic assumptions, we get math with charts and graphs. And then macro is the actions of millions of people, and then we simplify it with assumptions, and then we get math with charts and graphs. Right here, I included the link to the AP exam description. I'll probably put the OneNote somewhere for y'all after stream's done. Okay. First is scarcity, unit 1.1. So the definition of scarcity is the idea that resources are limited. If you use a resource for one thing, you cannot use it for another, right? That's another way to say scarcity. There are two types of scarcity, absolute and relative. Absolute scarcity is the physical limitation of a resource. Relative scarcity is the value we put on a resource, right? So, as an example, Netflix subscriptions aren't particularly scarce, right? People can hand out Netflix subscriptions, but, or Netflix in theory could, but we place a value on it, so there it becomes relatively scarce or relative scarce. I'll add an example. Diamonds are not physically scarce, so they are not absolute scarce, but society values them so highly that they are relatively scarce. Yeah, if you didn't know, diamonds are actually quite common, except for the fact that one company owns 80% of the mines, which is a monopoly, and that's Unit 4, not Unit 1. But yeah, so it's not actually physically scarce, but because society values it so much, it becomes relatively scarce. Scarcity is the foundation of microeconomics and guides how individuals make choices. And now we'll look at opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the value we forfeit when we choose one option over another, aka the opportunity we lost. And it's opportunity cost is the next best alternative. So I know Decathlon asked questions on this. AP might it may have a few options, and it'll be like this person makes $50 an hour, and they could make 30, 15, 10. What's their opportunity cost for that job? Well, it would be $30 or $30 an hour. When an item is scarce, the price typically increases, and this will affect supply and demand in Unit 2. Different economic systems manage scarcity differently. Uh, Capitalism uses market forces to allocate resources, while in planned economies or socialist economies, the government determines how to allocate resources. There are four factors of production, and you can remember them as CELL, was the acronym that I made. Uh, the C in CELL is capital, which is something produced to produce other things, i.e., tools, building, machinery, etc. Uh, I'll skip E because I'll get to that later, because I need to go over the other three before that. Then there's labor, which is the physical force used to produce stuff. So it could either be man, which is like the typical thing we see in economics, but even in Decathlon last year in Unit 4, we saw that animal labor played a role until until we mechanized everything. Then there's land, which it's not just land, it's all natural resources. So when they say land, it's referring to all natural resources. So yeah, it's the physical natural resources, i.e., land, water, air. Um, yeah. Then there's entrepreneurship, which is the E, and entrepreneurship or technology is not how we use these words every day, or maybe entrepreneurship is, but technology isn't. Um, this category is putting everything together. So we put all these factors together, our capital, our labor, and our land, and we put them together to create stuff. And then that's entrepreneurship. So those are the four factors of production. Oh, and these factors can be used to make two types of goods. Capital, which I've discussed before, which is stuff to produce other stuff, or consumer goods, which is stuff that you actually consume. All right. I'm going to go over rival and non rival goods. Uh, Rival goods is if one person consumes the good, it limits the ability for another person to consume the good. And then or it makes it worse off. Maybe not necessarily completely limit it, but it makes it more difficult for them to use. So a non-rival good is if is a good that one person can consume without limiting another person's enjoyment or ability to consume it. So I made a few examples of rival and non-rival goods. Um, Air would be a non-rival good because we can consume it, and like I breathe air, you breathe air. That doesn't make it any harder for anyone else to breathe air. Although situation does affect this, right? So if we were in a sinking ship and there was very limited oxygen and we were trapped under the deck, air would be a scarce resource and therefore would be rival. But day to day, it's non-rival. Then there's ideas. Ideas are also non-rival, right? So just because I have an idea and you have an idea doesn't necessarily make the idea any worse for me or you. So it's non-rival. Pizza or food in general is rival, right? Once I eat it, you can't eat it anymore. And because I consumed it and that makes it harder for you to consume it or decrease enjoyment or remove you the ability for you to consume it at all, makes it a rival good. A car is also a rival good because although multiple people can drive the same car, if someone's driving the car, another person can't. So therefore, it's making it harder for another person to drive the car. And in reality, this is more of like a spectrum, right? There are goods that are more rival and than other goods. So like pizza is probably more rival than a car, right? You can share a car with someone, but you can share a pizza, but you can't share like that same bite. But a car, uh, you can share. National defense. National defense is a non-rival good. Um, at least in America, we have a government that pays for the defense, and we all benefit from it. You can't go up to someone if you control the defense and be like, "Hey, you can't have our defense. Everyone benefits from it just because they are in America. Uh, a book. A book is a rival good. Because if I read a book, like I'm reading, if I read a book right now, then you can't read the same book while I'm reading it. So therefore, it makes it a rival good. But it's probably less rival than the two above. Um, I'll go over these two in a second. A hammer is probably a rival good. Or no, not probably. A hammer is a rival good because if I use a hammer, you can't use the hammer at the same time. You get the gist by now. Okay. I have roads, three different roads. And this is to showcase the idea that there can be situations where a rival good or a non rival good becomes the opposite. So, a road during rush hour. What is this? Well, this would be a rival good, right? If you're on the freeway and another car gets on the freeway and it's rush hour, that's going to make it harder for you to drive home, or it's going to at least make it longer and less enjoyable. So it would become a rival good. Roads at 3 a.m. Uh, at 3 a.m., it probably doesn't matter who's on the road because there's very little. So it is a non rival good, right? If you're driving at 3 a.m. and someone else gets on the freeway, you aren't going to be any worse off. Next is roads general. I think I would classify roads general as a non-rival good just because there really isn't anyone gatekeeping you from driving on the road unless it's literally full, like in perhaps rush hour. Uh, but you can see how some of these ideas aren't really concrete like one or the other. It's more like a spectrum between rival and non-rival. But I think for AP's sake, it's either going to be rival or non-rival. All right, economic models. So here we have society. It's complex, and we simplify it via economic assumptions, and then we get models, right? Supply and demand curve um, isn't as complicated as all of society because society is complicated. You know, people think differently, act differently. Uh, People were raised differently. People like different things, so just it's very complex. But if we look at a good, like if I put like bread right here, and we look at the supply and demand curves for bread, well, we kind of just ignore all that because we simplify it with economic assumptions. And the economic assumption that we kind of just ignore a lot of other stuff would be ceteris paribus, which is, I think it's with all being equal, or we also assume another economics assumption besides ceteris paribus is that everyone acts rational, right? We assume that you know all these groups of people are going to take the action that improves their outcome the most. But we know that's not always true. We know people make bad decisions. So, yeah, a lot of the contingencies and the flaws with economics comes from these assumptions because, I may have an economic assumption and you have an economic assumption and they may not agree with one another. So that's where people typically disagree in economics. All right, put another one of these sorting thingies. Normative economics and positive economics. Normative economics is like a matter of opinion, right? So we should do this, we should do that, we shouldn't do that. This is right, this is wrong, that is moral, that is immoral, right? That would be normative. It's going to be more of an opinion, less concrete. Positive economics is things that we can test. It's more cause and effect, right? Like if I say, um, I don't know what would be a good one, that the law of demand is a inverse correlation between quantity demanded and price. Well, that can be tested. We can go look at the behaviors of people and we can go look at that and we can see that relationship. But if I say something like the minimum wage is wrong, right? We shouldn't have a minimum wage. We can't really quantify that. We can make a bunch of positive economic observations, so we can test a bunch of things and then come to a conclusion. So both positive and normative economics have a place in the science, um, but positive economics is more used to support normative economic statements, because what can we do with just cause and effect relationships? Well, we can support our arguments, and that's kind of the purpose of these two. So people should be paid a livable wage. That would be normative, because the key word is should. People should be paid a minimum or livable wage. That can't really be quantified. It's more like a value statement that I'm saying something's right or wrong. So it'd be normative. Welfare decreases incentives to work for able individuals. This would be a positive economic statement, because we can actually look at people on welfare and determine and look at how much they work, and then we could look at people not on welfare for able individuals and determine, we can find a correlation between the amount they work and how much support they're getting. So therefore, it would be positive. Uh, Minimum wage is moral and should be enacted. This would be a normative economic statement, because I'm saying it should and it's moral. It's a matter of opinion, right? Uh, you could ask two different people, they could have two completely different takes. Uh, a minimum wage decreases total surplus. This is positive. As we'll see in Unit 2, I think it's Unit 2, when we look at price floors and price ceilings, you will see that a price floor decreases surplus in the market, and a minimum wage is a form of price floor. Therefore, it decreases total surplus. So we can actually test it, and we will test it later, or we'll see the proof later. All right. Taxing the rich will allow our government to create programs to grow the economy. Uh, I think this would be positive, because um, we can actually look at two different countries and see which one has stricter yeah a stricter taxation policy and one that has a less strict taxation policy, and we can see at their ability to make programs, and we can actually find a correlation. All right. Our current tax system is unfair. This is a normative statement, because or it's saying it's unfair. It's a matter of opinion, right? I'm making a moral judgment. I hope y'all understand that. All right. Um, I'm going to go over two more differences of micro and macroeconomics, because it is in 1.1. Macroeconomics is the study of the overall economy of a country and looks at issues such as inflation, unemployment, GDP, and policy. While microeconomics is the study of individual actors in an economy like firms, businesses, and people. Also, I put a Khan Academy link, or I tried to, if I remembered, to the Khan Academy page for that unit. So you can go take the practice quizzes and actually see if you understand the concepts. And then if you don't, go back and watch the videos that they have. Okay. Next is resource allocation. Uh, so in economics, there are three questions that need to be answered. Uh, what goods and services will be produced? Uh, how will goods and services be produced? And who will receive the goods and services? So it's resource allocation, resource production, and methodology behind resource production. Okay. I have a brief description. So because scarcity exists, societies cannot produce everything. it wants as its resources are limited. So it needs to make choices on how to allocate resources, which is an aspect of what defines an economic system. So, what goods and services will be produced is an aspect of an economic system. A command economy or socialist or communist economy leaves resource allocation to a central power like a government, while a capitalist economy leaves it to the free market and lets market forces decide how resources are spent. Or, yeah, how resources are allocated. Okay. How will goods and services be produced? So, central to microeconomics, because it mainly applies to firms and businesses, this question can have many answers and is answered by how we set up industries. So, if we have an economic system that prioritizes efficiency, well, that's what industry will do, and it may cut corners where it deems fit. If you had like a government run or organized industry and it was forced to go around the corners, maybe it's less efficient, um, but it will produce things differently. Okay? And then who will receive the goods and services? And this question is answered after the production of goods. Um, and I don't know if this was meant to be there. Yeah, I think it was meant to be there. Oopsies. Um, yeah, so depending on your economic system, it'll allocate goods and services differently. So, like I said earlier, a communist economy may uh, give different goods and services to different people, while a capitalist economy, the market forces may give goods and services to other people. Uh, Economic system, which is an economic system. I've been talking about it for a while now, but it's just a set of rules that answers the three questions: who will receive the goods and services, how will it be produced, and what goods and services produce. So what, who, or what, how, and who. There are four main economic systems: a traditional, a command, a market, and a mixed. And we will evaluate, or you can evaluate an economic system based off those four or based off three factors. My bad. It can be evaluated by its efficiency, which is the maximization of output with minimum input, its equity or fairness in distribution, and stability, the ability to withstand external forces. So, the traditional economic system is based off culture and tradition, simple methods of production, and little specialization of labor. Labor is often divided by gender roles, age, and social status, distribution of goods based off family relationships, typically found in isolated communities. So this may be this economic system may be dead now, but it would be something that you would think about, something that you may see 400 years ago that may have been akin to that system. Next, we have command economies or socialist economies, where it's a government or central authority that decides the production, consumption, and distribution of goods, controls prices and wages. This system can be more equitable as they put effort towards social goals, but is often inefficient because lacks the incentive that private firms offer, and the production determined cannot adapt as easily to preferences of consumers. So, this is a bit of me, but everyone is equal, equally poor. So, because it's not as efficient, not as many goods are produced, but at least everyone shares that small portion of goods. All right. Next, we have a market economy, or often known as a capitalist. So, the laws of supply and demand determine the production, consumption, and distribution of goods. In order for a market economy to work, You need to have well defined property rights. Property rights do three things. They make, or good property rights should have three things. They should be exclusive. So if I own something, it should be I am the only one that owns it. It should too be enforceable. So if someone were to steal that thing, I could be like, that's mine. And then three, it's transferable. So if I wanted to sell it, I could. I could. And you need all three for a market economy to work. Okay, market economy continued because there's a bit more. Actors in this economy are free to buy and sell goods. Firms are motivated to produce goods efficiently because of competition and profitability. Consumers can choose what to buy based off preferences and affordability. And because firms are motivated by consumers' preferences allocate allocation of resources is based off preferences. There's an ending comma there. Um, because firms are motivated by consumer preferences, allocation of resources are based off the preferences of society. Market economies encourage innovation because the competitive market driving firms to become more efficient. A market economy can lead to income inequality as the people with resources get richer. It can also be unstable because of fluctuating supply and demand and may lead to market failures and externalities. So a market economy is, so if I were to make like a quip on this, it would be that like it's efficient only for some people. So a market economy is typically efficient, but not everyone gets as big of a slice, and it can be unstable. And then next there's a mixed economy, which combines a market and command economies. The government may regulate public goods and services, while the private sector does the rest for profit, and the government may intervene when it sees fit. The government may also address income inequality by progressive taxation and welfare. Mixed economies may have government inefficiencies, and the public and private sectors can also have discourse. So, a mixed economy kind of takes command and market economies and puts them together. This is typically what we have, or most developed nations have, where the government regulates goods that aren't very profitable or they're public, right? You can't really prevent anyone from getting it, therefore, you can't charge a price, like roads or public defense. But they leave the private sector to do everything else super efficiently. And they may intervene if there's like a monopoly or something and they see it not being as efficient. And so they can break it up to restore efficiency. Um, and they can also be more equal because the government can intervene. But as we've seen in reality, uh, we don't know how effective that is. And there's one flaw, or another flaw with the mixed economy, is that the public and private sector can have discourse, or there could be corruption, where the government and businesses can argue, or the government and businesses could work together and leave the little guy uh, suffering. So yeah, for economic systems, what I would take away from this is the three ways to evaluate it. Um, what are command, market, and mixed, especially, um, and then what are the three questions? Okay. Now we have production possibility frontier or curves or frontiers, depending on who you ask. PPCs or PPFs measure the opportunity cost between two goods. For example, if you have a hunter and gatherer, you may have this production possibility frontier. They could either, if they spent all their time in the day, they could catch 5 rabbits. If they spent all their time looking for berries, they can have 300 berries. Then we have everything in between, where it's 4 rabbits, 100 berries, 3 rabbits, 180 berries, 2 rabbits, 240, 1 rabbit, 280. And then we see it in a graph with this curve. And anything on the curve is efficient, as you are maximizing how effective your time and output are. Anything inside the curve, which is the magenta, is possible but inefficient. So if I get 1 rabbit and 100 berries, well, I know I could be getting 180 berries with that while still catching 1 rabbit if I were more efficient. Uh, Anything outside the curve, which is this yellow shading, is impossible. So I couldn't catch 6 rabbits, it would be impossible. And just a quick review, um, opportunity cost is the value given up to attain a certain outcome. So it's the next best alternative. So, for example, in scenario B, oh, okay, you need to actually be able to find opportunity cost from the table or graph. So, for example, let's say you're in scenario B and you want to catch another rabbit. What's your opportunity cost? Well, in order to go from 4 to 5 rabbits, you have to give up 100 berries. So your opportunity cost to go from 4 to 5 rabbits would be 100 berries. All right. Another example is if you are in. Oh, give me 1 second. Never mind. Um, let's say you are in scenario C, and what was it? And you want to get more berries, right? So you want to get 60 more berries. So in order to get 60 more berries, you need to give up 1 rabbit. So the opportunity cost for those 60 berries would be 1 rabbit. Um, in this PPF, we see one of the most common types of opportunity cost, which is the law of increasing. Yeah, it's increasing. Yeah, increasing opportunity cost. An increasing opportunity cost. Increasing opportunity cost is going to be curved. It's going to be bowed, curved, kind of out, I guess. Okay. Okay. And the rationale behind that, increasing opportunity cost, right? Because right here you give up 1 rabbit and you get 100 berries, and then here you give up 1 rabbit and you only get 80 berries, right? So the rationale behind that is that being that you give up, okay, let's say you're catching 5 rabbits, right? You're spending all your time on rabbits. And you give up the hardest to catch rabbit, right? The one that's super fast, the one that's super smart, the one that's a pain to catch. You give him up. And so you get a few berries instead. And those berries are the super easy berries, the ones that are right on your path while you're hunting rabbits. Or let's say you are just catching berries or just getting berries, right? And when you're looking for berries, you are going for those berries that are in the thorn bushes or up high or far away in those really hard to get situations. And you only have to give up 20 of those hard to get berries to get that really stupid rabbit. That one that walks right next to you and doesn't think that you're a danger. And that stupid rabbit that had it coming to him, you catch it because it's, and you only have to give up the 20 really hard to get berries. So yeah, that's the rationale between, or rationale for increasing opportunity cost. And I think this model shows it. Okay. There are 2 other types besides increasing, which is the bowed or the curved out. There can be constant opportunity cost, and it'll be linear. And the rationale would be for stuff that is easily transferable, right? So let's say I had the option between selling frozen yogurt and ice cream. The inputs for both frozen yogurt and ice cream are very similar. And to switch between the two, I wouldn't have to give up a lot of the other because, or it would be the same because the resources are the same. While here the resources were maybe a bit different. So like if I were to do maybe ice cream and guns, right? Ice cream and guns, the resources aren't easily transferable. And so the first bit of ice cream I give up, I will get more guns than the next bit because I transferred the super efficient gun materials to for that inefficient ice cream materials. Okay. There can also be decreasing opportunity costs, and the PPF would look something like this. It would be curved inwards or concave in. Concave in, yeah. And the rationale is that it's for stuff that you get better at, right? So let's say let's go back to, oh well, it already has the numbers for that, but let's say I am hunting rabbits, right? And that first rabbit I catch, or no, I'll do fishing because there's a bit more technique to that. Let's say that first fish I catch, or yeah, I can either fish or get coconuts, right? If I choose to get more coconuts and I do one fish, I'll get a certain amount, right? If I do two fish and give up a bit more coconuts, then I will start to get the hang of it and learn how to fish better. And then, so the more fish I get, the less I have to give up because you get more and more efficient at it. Or, yeah, I'll use study time. Yeah. Um, like, if I'm studying for decathlon, right? And I want to improve my score by 1,000 points. And let's say I have to put 10 hours in. And I'm able to do it, right? I put 10 hours in, or 10 hours a week, right? And let's say I want to improve it by another 1,000. Well, this next 1,000, I only have to do maybe 6 extra hours a week because I learned how to study effectively and I get slowly better and better. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about shifts in the PPF. It's only possible you if a change happens in your factors of production, right, which is your cell. Uh, the four factors of production again is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So let's say in this scenario, right? If if the guy was given more land to hunt on, do you think maybe he could catch 6 rabbits instead of 6 rabbits for 0 berries? Because now there's more rabbits and they're easier to catch. They're they're more abundant. Yeah. So because he got a change in cell, his opportunity or his PPF will shift out. And yeah, and your PPF can actually only shift in just one good, right? So in the berries and rabbits example, maybe he was giving a what would be something that's maybe he was given like a knife, right? And that knife wouldn't make him more efficient at berries. Or also sometimes entrepreneurship is called technology. Um, he gets a knife, and now he's able to get more rabbits, but not more berries. So then you could have a curve like this, or where just that one axis shifts out. So if a change in these four things happen, then the shift in your PPF will occur. But this can also decrease, right? If let's say he lost land, right? Uh, he would become less efficient, or he lost time in the day. he will become less efficient. Uh, Actually, a great example would be like farming, right? You kind of lose labor at some points in the years, and you get it, or in the year, and you get it back in others because of daylight, right? The In the summer the sun's out longer, while in winter it's out less. Yeah. This is definitely you need to practice this. Uh, Understanding the PPF. Go to the Khan Academy and do that. Next, we have comparative advantage, which is building up on the PPF. So, no longer is it just one person in our PPF. We are going to compare two different PPFs. So, given this PPF, actually, I'll draw it here. Um, so, each unit is in tens. And let's say, yeah, I'll use cups and plates. So let's say this one is C, PPFC, and this is PPFF. So PPFC, or the person in this PPF, can either produce 30 cups or 10 plates. And the person in PPFF can produce 30 plates and 10 cups. So if we take out the opportunity cost, C is going to be 30C to 10P. And if we want to simplify this into units of C, we'll have um, C equals 1/3 P, because we divide everything by 30. And then let's say we have F, person F. They have 30P, um, and 10C. If we want to get everything in terms of C, then we have C equals 3P. Well, oh, that would be their opportunity cost. Yeah, I probably should have said that before I started calculating. But yeah, that's how you figure out the opportunity cost of PPF. I think I addressed it the last slide or the last unit. Um, but we can obviously see that PPFC has a lower opportunity cost for cups, and PPFF has a higher opportunity cost. Um, but if we get everything in terms of P, well, P would equal 3C for C, and then P would equal what? P would equal 1/3 C for PPFF, right? So we see that uh, PPFC has a advantage in producing cups, and PPFF has an advantage in producing plates. So we call these comparative advantage because they have a lower opportunity cost. An absolute advantage is being able to produce more of that given good. So uh, C has a absolute advantage because they can produce in cups because they can produce 30 cups while F can produce 10 plates. While F has an absolute advantage in plates, and while C has a can only produce 10 plates to F's 30. Yeah. Uh, and an individual should specialize in whatever they have the lower opportunity cost in. So C should specialize in cups, and F should specialize in plates. and then they can trade and to create a mutually beneficial or a better outcome for both of them. And I will use this number, 1 cup for 1 plate. I'll explain how to find this out later. Uh, yeah, so let's assume that they trade 10 plates for 10 cups, right? So here we have F, they're producing 30 plates, and C is producing 30 cups. F gives up 10 plates for 10 cup, while C gives up 10 cups for 10 plates. And now all of a sudden, they're outside of their PPF. So they are able to get outside their PPF and reach beneficial outcomes through trade by specializing in whatever they have a comparative advantage, which is lower opportunity cost. And another term you need to know is absolute advantage, which is just being able to produce more. But if you can also have an absolute advantage and still trade with someone, or you can have an absolute advantage in both goods and still trade with someone and reach beneficial outcomes. So here we'll do it again, but let's say uh, PPFC can now produce 40 of both. So this would be their, or either 40 of both. And while F stays the same. Well, if we figure out their opportunity cost, C is 40 cups, plates. C is 40C to 40P, or 40 cups to 40 plates. We divide by 40, we get 1 cup for 1 plate. While our PPFF still has the same opportunity cost of either 1C for, what was it, 3P, or P for 1/3 C. It could still be beneficial to trade because C still has a better or a cheaper opportunity cost for cups, uh, but F still has a cheaper opportunity cost for plates. So F should specialize in plates while C should specialize in cups. And let's say they traded for 2 plates, 2 Ps or 2 plates for 1 cup. Uh, and let's say they trade 10 plates. Or yeah, no, let's do 20 plates. So here, PPFF has to give up 20 plates, but they get 10 cups. So they would be right there. Now, C has to give up 10 cups, but they get 20 plates. And they're both able to get out of their PPF, reach more efficient outcomes. And this is because they specialized in whatever they had a comparative advantage in, and they traded. So if given the question on what good they should specialize in, you pick their lowest opportunity cost. So the good that they have a cheaper opportunity cost. And I don't know if I didn't explain it earlier, but a shortcut to figure out your opportunity cost, like if you had only one piece of information, you just take the reciprocal, and that will be your other opportunity cost. So if C equals 3P, the reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. So yeah, that's a shortcut. Um, so I think this is a way that I found a way to find out how they what they should trade, like what their terms for trade is, right? Like this, because I've kind of just told it to y'all, and you've seen that it's been beneficial for both. Next, we're gonna figure out how to determine it, and there's this way, which is kind of for me it was hard to understand, so I figured out my way. I will put this one note later so you can read it if you want to, but what you do is you just make a range, right? So here we have an example, which is actually from an FRQ from an exam, I think 2016. And here's a video playing or explaining the FRQ. But if we take America, so we'll assign that A, and they have 30 cars, and they can make 10 tractors. And then we have Japan, who can make 20 cars to 40 tractors. I will show you how to figure out their terms of trade. And I know this is actually kind of opposite, right? Like Japan actually produces cars in real life while America produces tractors. But if we figure out their opportunity cost, so um, divide by 30 both sides, cars to 1/3 train, and then the reciprocal of that would be trains to 3 cars. Japan can produce 1 car to 2 trains or 2 tractors, and reciprocal of that would be 1 tractor to 1/2 a car. So who has a cheaper opportunity cost in cars? Well, it's America because they have to only give up 1/3 of a tractor, while Japan has to give up 2 tractors. Um, what is it? Okay, for tractors, America has to give up 3 cars, but Japan only has to give up half a car. So therefore, uh, they should specialize in producing tractors. So America is going to specialize in cars, and Japan's going to specialize in tractors because America has the comparative advantage in cars, and Japan has the comparative advantage in tractors. So how do you figure out what their terms of trade should be? Well, you just have to fit it in this range. So if we want to use cars as our baseline, as long as you have 1 car for something greater than 1/3 a tractor, um, but less than 2 tractors, it'll be beneficial. So, um, 1 car for 1 tractor. That'll be beneficial because it's in between. It's in between 1/3 and 2. Um, you could do, uh, oh, what did I do? Oh, oopsies. You could do um, what I did in the video, or what the video showed, 2 cars for 1 tractor. If you wrote it in terms of cars, well, it's going to be 1 car for half a tractor. That's in between. 1/2 is bigger than 1/3. So that terms of trade is mutually beneficial. So to figure out your terms of trade, you just have to figure out what they have a comparative advantage in, and then what the other country is disadvantaged in, and create a range in between the two, just like I did right here. Uh, this could be like literally like 10% of your AP exam if they put like this question. So make sure to understand how this works. Do practice problems. Uh, what is it? Did I put the source here? No, I didn't put the source here. But if you Google AP Microeconomics FRQs, the College Board will have all their past FRQs, and you can go and do practice ones. All right. They can have you calculate opportunity cost by giving you input. So we've worked with output, right? Like right here, it's America's producing 30 cars and producing 10 tractors. That's their output. But what happens if they give us input, like in the table right here? Let me zoom in a bit. There we go. Okay. See, we have how many worker hours does it take to produce an item? So in country A, they can produce uh, it's 2 worker hours per car and 1 worker hour per belt. In country B, it is 4 hours per car and 3 hours per belt. So what you do is you just assign a given input, right? And so right here we just assign 8 hours, right? So if we assign 8 hours, well, if it's 2 hours to produce and they have 8 hours, they're able to produce 4 of them. If it takes 1 hour to produce, but they have 8 hours, then they can produce 8. If it takes 4 hours, they can produce 2. And if it takes 3 hours, 8 divided by 3, 2, 8 thirds, or 2, uh, that mixed number, 2 and 2 thirds. Yeah, 2 and 2 thirds. Um, and then you can figure out your opportunity cost from there. Worker A, 8 to 2, 4, T's, B's, divide by 8, T 1/2 B, B 2T. And then for B, you can do 2T to. Did I do it backwards? I think I did do it backwards. Wait, no. No, I did it. Yeah, wait. Yeah, I think I put the numbers wrong. 8B to 4T divided by 8B 1/2 T reciprocal T to B. While for worker B, let's say this is, worker A. We have worker B who can produce 2T to do 8 over 3B. 1T is 4 over 3B, and then B is 3 over 4T. And if you want to figure out their trade, well, who has a cheaper opportunity cost than belts? Well, worker A has to give up half a toy car, while worker B has to give up 3/4 a toy car. So worker A has the comparative advantage, while worker B has the comparative advantage in toy cars because they only have to give up 4/3 of a belt, while worker A has to give up 2 belts. So they would be fine trading anywhere between a belt for anything in between 1/2 T to 1/2 T to 3/4 T. Actually, it can't be it. You can't. They can't trade for one half T. Like that range trick I told you, it has to be in between. So it can't equal it. There are instances where there is no gain from trade. I'm not going to draw everything out for this one, but if we look at these two countries, right? Country A can produce 3 apples and 6 bananas. Country B can produce 2 apples and 4 bananas. Their opportunity cost is the same, right? Uh, they both have to give up 2 bananas per apple, or half an apple per banana. And so when determining if they should trade, they shouldn't, because they have the same opportunity cost. So there's no way to find a beneficial trade agreement. Um, Here is an example of an FRQ being worked out on comparative advantage. Um, I would recommend it if you're left confused right now. Um, and then here is the website to practice, or Khan Academy to practice. Okay, next is cost benefit analysis. So in economics, we assume that people act rationally, like I mentioned earlier, and we part of that is performing something called cost benefit analysis, where they look at their benefits and they look at their costs. And as long as the benefits outweigh the costs, then they'll take the action. But if it costs too much and the benefits are too small, then they won't take the action. Um, Although we assume they act rationally, right? Oftentimes people do not. Um, I'm going to go over accounting and economic profits real quick before I get into the cost benefit analysis. Uh, there are explicit costs of things. So explicit means like clearly stated, such as the price of something, but there are also implicit costs, such as opportunity costs. So let's say I give you um, a baseball ticket, right, for free. Um, for free. The explicit cost would be zero because it's for free. But the implicit cost is the time it took for you to get there, what you had to do to get there, etc. So what you had to give up to get there, despite its explicit cost being zero. So accounting profits is going to be your revenue minus your explicit costs. While this fails to account for opportunity costs, while economic profits is your revenue minus total costs. And total costs equals implicit plus explicit. So your economic profits is going to either be your revenue minus your total costs, or you take your accounting profit and you subtract your implicit costs. So that's accounting and economic profit. I think it's fairly straightforward. I hope you all understand. If you do not, like anything I've talked about, or yeah, I didn't say this earlier, but if you didn't understand, you can always come up to me in class and ask. Okay. Utility is the use of a given thing, and it's sometimes defined as happiness. Um, so, like ice cream, right? Ice cream isn't necessarily useful, but it makes you happy, so it's useful, or you gain utility from it. And it's measured in this fictional unit called utils. Here's an example below. Um, Here you have ice cream scoops, right? Let's say you're given no ice cream. Your utility is zero. But you get 1 scoop of ice cream, well, your utility goes up to 80. And then you're given another ice cream. Then your total utility goes to 140. You're happier. Then you're given a third ball of ice cream. And you're happier than whenever you had your second. And then, yeah. But when you're given your fourth scoop of ice cream, you're like, oh, well, that's too much. And your utility may actually go down. That refers to the law of diminishing the law of diminishing marginal utility. So right here, marginal utility is the incremental utility uh, per a unit of something. So that first scoop gave us 80 utils, while that second scoop only gave us 40 because maybe you're really craving ice cream, right? And you're happier with that second scoop, but it didn't make you as happy as that first scoop, right? So a way I could explain this is maybe like a buffet, right? Let's say you go to a buffet and you make a plate, right? Your first plate was really good, you got a lot of value out of it. And then you get a second plate. You weren't as hungry as your first plate, so you don't get as much use out of it, but it was still good and you don't feel too full. But then you get a third plate, right? And you're full by now. And then you eat that third plate, and then your stomach starts to hurt, and then your utility goes down. So that refers to the law of diminishing marginal utility, which states the more of a thing, or more of that thing given, the less you get out of each one. Uh, and then here I just explain why food is a good example, but you can use it with other good or other examples, right? Like I use books, right? Um, let's say you have uh, a book, right? You get utility out of that book, right? Let's say I give you another book, or you get another book, and you get more utility out of that book. And then let's say you keep on getting books until maybe, let's say, you have 100 books. And then now you don't know where to put your books. You have too many books and you don't know what to do with them. And then that may be an example of negative utility because the more that you got, it caused the problem. Okay. Marginal analysis. So that's going to be putting this utility all together, right? I'll address this in a second. So consumers make choices on how they spend their money based off their utility, right? Oops, if you look right here, and let's say I have $5 to spend, right? I can either buy chocolate bars or fruit. So that first dollar, oh well, okay. Here's a list of values of marginal utility I'll get from each quantity, right? And the chocolates cost $1 and the fruit costs $2, right? So my first dollar, what do I spend? Well, the marginal utility per dollar on chocolate bars is 100, while the marginal utility per dollar is 60 for fruit. So that first dollar, you buy a chocolate bar. And then, so after you eat that chocolate bar, uh, that second chocolate bar is going to give you less utility, but it gives you 80, and fruit only gives you 60. So you don't get that um, the fruit, you get the chocolate bar. Then the third dollar, the the third dollar, you can make an argument for either. You could either get chocolate bars or fruit, and in either case it would be correct because they're the same. But in this example, they spent it on the chocolate bar. So now on their fourth and fifth dollar, they buy a pound of fruit because it would be more marginal utility than that fourth chocolate bar of 40, as they would be getting 60 marginal utility out of that first pound of fruit. Also, something I didn't mention earlier is like the utils isn't like a real like thing. Like it is, but it isn't. Like you can't really quantify utility. I mean, we do. I'm digging myself in a deeper hole. Like utils is not like centimeters, right? Where it's like explicitly stated, right? Like you may get more utility out of fruit than the chocolate bar in this example, and that's more up to preferences. Um, So if we visualize marginal utility, if you were to graph it, or if you were to graph total utility, it kind of makes like this pattern. Because then after a while, your utility starts to go down for something. Well, your marginal utility is just going to go straight down. Um, yeah, because it's decreasing after each interval, but your total utility goes up until your marginal utility goes in the negatives. Um, okay. You stop consuming, or a rational actor stops consuming, whenever their marginal utility is zero. So if I use my buffet example, right? A rational actor wouldn't consume that third plate. They would only consume the first two because that third plate isn't giving them any utility, it's hurting them. So if a good is free, a consumer will stop buying the good when their marginal utility hits zero. And then, yeah. Okay, this isn't very clear. Um, but as soon as you get more marginal utility in another good, you switch over, right? Okay. I forget what this law is called, but if you go on Khan Academy, it'll tell you. But this law states that, oh, it's the profit maximization law, I think. Or, yeah, utility maximization, where your marginal utility for good Y per price Y uh, equals your marginal utility of good X over price X. Um, that means you would have maximized utility when the two are equal. So here we'll do an FRQ um, for an example. So Martha has a fixed budget of $20. She spends she spends it all on two goods, X and Y. The price of X is $4 per unit, and the price of Y is $2. The table below shows the total benefit measured in dollars that Martha receives from the consumption of each good. So question A, what is Martha's marginal benefit on the fifth good of X? So we go to good X, we go from 4 to 5. What is her marginal benefit? Her marginal benefit is going to be $1 because her benefit increases from $1 between the two. Calculate the total consumer surplus if Martha consumes 5 units of X. So her consumer surplus is going to be her total benefit minus her cost. So if she gets 5 goods, it's going to cost her $20, but she gets $41 of benefit. So her total benefit is going to be, or her consumer surplus is going to be $21. Martha is consuming 4 units of X and 2 units of Y. Use marginal analysis to explain why is this combination is not optimal. So for marginal analysis, I'm going to we're actually going to figure out D first in order to work E. So marginal benefit over price is going to give us her um, marginal benefit per price, so we can figure out which goods or combinations she should spend. So she has a $20 budget, right? So her marginal benefit is 16 for a first of X, um, and price is 4. So her marginal benefit over price is 4, while her um, For good y, her benefit is 10 and her price is 2, so her marginal benefit per price is 5. Oh wait, I realized that I set it up better here. So 4, 5. So then for this one, her marginal benefit increases. Uh, what is it? Can't do math. 8. Nope. I'm blank. I'm 12. It increases 12. Divided by 4 is 3. 18 divided by 2. Well, not 18. From 10 to 18, it increases 8. Divided by 2, it is 4. So for her third quantity, it goes from 28 to 36. And so it only increases 8. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 18 to 24, it increases by 6. Divided by 2 is 3. For good 4, or for a fourth time, 36 to 40, it's an increased benefit of 4. Divided by 4 is 1. From 24 to 28, it increases by 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And for the last one, 1 divided by 4 is 1/4. And then it increased from 28 to 30, which is why am I blanking? $2. $2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay. So she has $20 to spend. So what's the first good she should buy? Well, she should buy 1 unit of Y and that's going to cost her $2. Then the next good. Well, she could choose between either, but uh, we'll do good Y first. So she gets another good Y. So it goes from 18 to 16. Okay. Now she has a choice between 4 and 3. She's going to choose 4. So then we get a good X. Good X. So now she has a choice between, oh wait, and that costs her $4. So we have 1, 2, 3 goods consumed. Yeah, 3 intervals. Okay. So she has a choice between 3 and 3. So let's just do where she does Y first. So then she has a unit of Y. Well, now we can see that already that this is inefficient because she, in the optimal combination, she would have consumed at least 3 Ys. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 6. Okay, yeah. This goes to 10. And then between 3 and 2, we have an X, which is what, 6. And then another Y. And then we have 4. $4 left, and then she spends her last $4 to get this last X. And then now we finished. So her optimal combination is going to be Martha's optimal combination of good X, yeah, of good x and good y is three units of x and 4 units of y. Is 3 units of x and 4 units of y. Okay, so explain why this combination is not optimal of 4 units of x and 3 units of y. Okay, um, okay. This okay. Martha consuming 4 units of x and 2 units of y is inefficient or is not optimal. Is not optimal because on her third wait um because the third the third unit of y consumed gives a marginal benefit per a dollar of 3, while the third unit of x consumed gives a marginal benefit per dollar of 2. It's not okay. Martha consuming 4 units of x and 2 units of y is not optimal because the third unit of y consumed gives a marginal benefit per dollar of 3, while the third unit of x consumed gives a marginal benefit per dollar of 2. Therefore, she should have she should have consumed a third unit of y before consuming a third unit of x in order to have an optimal consumption. I'm just going to leave that out there and then draw the line. Yeah. So if you're given a problem like this, you want to make your table or do some of these easier questions, and then when you have to create your table, you create your table. Okay. Indicate whether each of the following causes the optimal quantity of good y to increase, decrease, or stay the same. Okay. If the price of good y doubles, well, um, that is going to decrease the optimal quantity because we calculate the optimal quantity by marginal benefit per price. Uh, and if it doubles, well, it's all of a sudden being divided um, by 4 instead of 2. And then so this would be 2.5, this would be 2, this would be 1.5, this would be 1, this would be 1 half. And that would decrease the amount, uh, yeah, decrease the optimal quantity. Okay. If Martha's income falls $10 with no change of price. Well, if this would cause it to decrease um, because, well, now all of a sudden she has less to spend. So now she can't consume as much. Okay. If Martha's income doubles, but the price of both goods double. So if she has $40 to spend, but this costs 8 and this costs why am I blanking? 4, then um, then no change happens because these become more expensive, but she has the money to pay for it by the same amount. Okay. So stay the same. So yeah, okay. I believe that's the end of 1.6. Um, yeah, I mean that's unit 1. I think it's fairly straightforward. I'll try and do unit 2 next Friday. Uh, Definitely do your Khan Academy questions. That should help. Um, I will figure out, I'll put the OneNote in the same link in Schoology where I put the the videos in, my decathlon videos in. Because I think you all will have access to that. Um, yeah, that's all I had planned today. Oh, uh, this is the AP Microeconomics. You should probably check it out. Um, and oh wait, wrong practice test, wrong thing. So if we go to AP Micro FRQ, I just want to check what we did. But yeah, I hope this helped. Um, yeah, what was this? Oh, no, wrong. 2016. Okay. Well, no problem. Yeah, I hope it helped. You probably have questions because I don't think I explained it as well as I wanted to. Um, I think it's this one. Yeah. All right. Y'all are free to leave. I'll stay on stream until I get the answers. Um, Marginal benefit 1, 21. Um, well, I think I overdid it, but I think that would have been the point. Um, 3, 4, is that the one that we said? Yeah. Decrease, stayed the same. Yeah. Okay. Resources that y'all have is the College Board FRQs. Those are good. Khan Academy. and the one no. All right. Thank you all for coming. I hope to see y'all next Friday. Bye bye.